Alright, it's an okay, nice big package this time. Got a couple things. We got, of course, big for the anime DVD, for the DVD collection movie night, which already happened. And then, of course, you can see, is this a zombie arrived? And now we've got a box, which ripping instead of opening, but I'll keep at it. Because we want to get at the delicious contents on the inside. Anime update. Let's see. Alright. I guess we'll just go in this order here. We'll begin at the top with the Pokemon Black and White Rival Destinies 2. Now, of course, once I caught up to Pokemon Black and White, I kind of stopped watching a lot of Pokemon stuff. So I'm falling behind on this. I don't even know where the anime is in terms of 5th versus 6th gen stuff. I haven't even played the 6th gen games. Need to finish Black 2 and or White 2. Whichever one I started up. Well, we have stuff. We've got a Fairy Tail Volume 9, which should be the start of Season 3, according to Wikipedia. You can see here it's regions A and B. I don't know if I remember correctly. Oh, I guess there's still what's on the other side of the, I guess, reversible cover, if it's reversible. And as usual, we got the 2 DVD and 2 Blu-ray discs. You can see that image a bit better here. But I'm pretty far behind in Fairy Tail. I guess maybe I finished the first season. So, next up we got Mardock Scramble, the 3rd Exhaust. I think this was supposed to be a 4-movie series, so there's just one more movie. Now that said, I haven't watched any of them, so I can't really comment on whether or not they'd be good series of movies or not, but still collecting them. Getting them both on DVD and Blu-ray. I guess for Blu-ray here, it's Region A. It's got an English dub. Alright. So I guess, oh, there are actually 2 discs. It's kind of resisting my attempts to rotate it. So we've got 2 discs in the DVD version, and 1 disc in the Blu-ray version, which has the same art as the first disc in the DVD version. Which is, I think, about what we'd expect from a Sentai release. Next up, we've got Maria Holic Alive. This is just the Blu-ray version. The DVD version, Amazon decided they didn't have it in stock, and we're maybe not going to get it in stock, even though we all know they are. This is just one of those things that happens randomly. But Right Stuff was pretty obviously advertising that they had the DVD version of Maria Holic Alive in stock, so I didn't even have to go search their store. It was right there as soon as I went to their site. So I went ahead and ordered it that way. And we've got Maria Holic Alive. Now, obviously, the fact that I'm buying both the DVD and the Blu-ray version is because this one includes an English dub. So, rewatching the first season and then watching this for the first time, you know, that might be a good excuse to watch this. Not that I'm in a particular rush. Next up, we've got Robotics Notes Volume 2, Set 2, Part 2. That's what it's called. Which has episodes 12 through 22, regions A and B. Naturally, it's got an English dub. Naturally, because it's, is it a... I was thinking it was Funimation. Oh, yeah, there we go. Really small words. Oh, it says so right there. And I think I remember enough about what happened in the first half to be ready to finish this. So you could say this one probably a high priority watch, simply because it will finish a series. And these would be your DVD discs and then your Blu-ray discs. And I did mention it's regions A and B, right? And you know, since part 1 just happens to be on the top of this pile, well, why not see what happens when we combine them? Nothing spectacular, of course. I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with these later, I guess. I guess I'll set them aside. Now we got the Ranma Half Blu-ray set, 23 restored episodes. So this is the first season. Well, I mean, I knew it would only be like the first group of episodes, not the whole series. It's a bit smaller than I expected, but I sometimes forget just how much gets compressed into a Blu-ray. Although, based on its weight, it is a bit, oh, that comes off. Now that looks really nice. Huh. Well, that I'm just going to set aside. Now, this is a Viz release, so naturally this is going to be, this is going to include the dub. Region A, you got Ranma Half. 1 through 8, 9 through 16, and 17 through 23. I imagine if they have any other extra features, they'll be here. Now, of course, there was a DVD release to go alongside this, but I didn't get that because I already have all the Ranma Half thin box releases. And I wasn't aware of there being anything particularly necessary. This looks like manga and some other information. That's actually kind of cool. So, finally we got to Yu-Gi-Oh! Official 4th season. You might know that I went through a lot of trouble to get the other Yu-Gi-Oh! Purchase, all the older stuff. The older releases, rather. And I also got 3 of the maybe 4 uncut volumes. I'm not sure if that 4th one has ever been released. I couldn't find any evidence one way or the other. But 4th season is notable in that, as far as I know, it's the only season that didn't have all of its English episodes released. It, I think, covered some sort of dragon arc sort of stuff, but I guess the Dark Magician Girl, who I think that is, might not have made it. Well, she's here now, and that's what's important. Well, basically, this should include all the episodes I didn't already have, and should complete my Yu-Gi-Oh! Collection. I'll probably double check just to make sure. But for now, I finally bought one of these. These have been coming out, and I do believe Season 5 is scheduled to come out sometime soonish. And then, of course, we got Is This a Zombie DVD Blu-ray collection, which I got because it's been released before only on DVD. Oh, according to the back, it's Region A, and of course, it should have an English dub. Yeah, there it is. And I got this because of the Blu-ray copy, of course, because I bought it on DVD, obviously. So, there we go. The first season of Is This a Zombie also came out on. Finally got a Blu-ray release. So I got that. And so, that's this week's update. It's actually a pretty nice update. Although, I think that a lot of these probably don't intend to watch. And I guess Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 4 is maybe better turned over like this. Although those look like individual volumes, it might require me to actually get the other releases they're doing, because that looks like a complete picture. Which I was afraid this would happen once I finally got around to it, but I guess I'll consider that. For now, there's stuff I've watched, which I wouldn't say it's particularly spectacular this week. Actually, it's definitely not spectacular because the first thing I put on was Upote. I think they pronounced it finally once in the anime, and I can't remember how they pronounced it. So basically, it looks like a very fan-servicey anime, and I was particularly sleepy that night and kind of thinking, yeah, this would be a good one to put on because I don't want to think too much about it. I had other projects I was trying to work on. Unfortunately, if you've watched it, you know that that's actually not the way it is. I mean, it has some fan-servicey elements to it, but it plays off more like a stranger version of Hitalia, where in Hitalia, the characters represent countries. This one, the girls represent guns, but not all the girls and not all the humans represent weapons or military equipment even, but these main middle school girls do, and then we're introduced to also high school and elementary school girls, although less so the elementary. That one's just an amusing appearance once, I guess. Basically, they represent the kind of guns that are also the kind of guns they shoot. So like, you got your Belgium F&C, your British L85A1, I guess that would be SIG and M16 and blah 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 blah. In any case, also like Hitalia, a lot of the jokes are based off of knowledge of the things characters represent, save for when it decides it doesn't want to do that and instead is like, oh yeah, this is just a normal human teacher going to a school where all the girls that they ever show us are guns. And so they have problems related to the kind of gun that they are, or interactions based upon interactions of the guns, or things like that. So instead, you just get a lot of gun facts thrown at you, because the anime, or rather the makers of the anime, are probably aware that the people watching it are less familiar with guns than somebody might be with the history of a well-known country, for example. And I think, if y'all recall, when I talked about Hitalia, for me, part of my problem with trying to watch that was a lot of the historical references simply went over my head. So this anime instead tried to explain stuff in good details, and when I would be doing something else, I'm like, wait a second. They're talking about the size of bullets, and I completely forgot the context under which I had to rewind and watch, and I had to pause it a whole lot and take in information, and I still forgot plenty of stuff. I mean, I'm trying to remember if SIG was Swedish or Swiss, because I think they're different. I think it's Swiss, and SIG is just a pronunciation of SG550. But then I don't remember what kind of M16 she was, if M16 was right. As a very rough example of the kind of gun-related problems they have, the best example is probably L85A1, simply because the anime really drives home that they were prone to problems. Magazines falling out, parts breaking internally and externally on the gun, etc., etc. And so she herself will run into problems where she breaks a firing pin or something like that. And I guess along those lines, we also learned that the creators definitely think that the SIG is the best rifle ever, considering every time they talk about what the rifles do, it's always there's always something in there about how SIG does it all better. And despite the fact that M16 is kind of the more popular one, yeah, that's what the anime does to you. Is this information just got absorbed watching it. And to a certain degree, I kind of respect it for that, and I'm kind of amused by it. But I also can't disagree with its low rating in terms of there seems to be a lot of contradiction in what you should be getting out of it, even if you're watching it not knowing what you should be getting out of it. What I mean is, like I said, I kind of put it in there because it seemed like it'd be kind of fan servicey. I wouldn't have to think too hard, but it turns out I have to think really hard. And that's not a problem because I like thinking hard, and of course I absorbed some of this random knowledge that I have no context to remember it other than the fact that I've watched an anime about it. But it would still go into these moments where it wasn't about, oh, this is just what a Belgium FNC is like, and instead it's like, oh, well, this Belgium FNC happens to like their human Japanese teacher because he had good stance and big hands, and she wants him to fire her. And so it's weird. And there's also an element of it where some of the humor does, or actually I guess a lot of the humor doesn't work out because the anime has to explain the joke pretty much. And because of that, it tends to reuse jokes like L85A1 breaking a lot. It tends to reuse jokes that it knows that it explained very well, which kind of limits what it can do, and also at the same time limits the ability to find it spontaneously humorous. It has moments in it for sure, but I can't really fault anybody for not liking it because it feels kind of directionless. You kind of have to. It's probably something that you would be more likely to appreciate once, unless you come around later and become a gun otaku essentially and understand the stuff and then see what they were doing when they were playing around with the anime or something like that. Yeah. So after that, since it took me forever to actually get through that, just a little bit at a time, and there were plenty of interruptions that happened along the way, it basically meant that it was... Oh yeah, and then of course there was also preparations for today, which was International Waffle Day, and meant that at work we did waffle stuff, and I wouldn't say I became a maple syrup expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I learned that there's more to maple syrup than going to the grocery store and purchasing it, because there's different grades and darknesses, and what I used to think as syrup is corn syrup, which shouldn't surprise me. Although it did surprise me to find out that it's corn syrup mixed with high fructose corn syrup, so I don't know. Kind of funny. But, interruptions aside, I had to decide something else, so I'm halfway through Love, Election, and Chocolate. And despite a little bit of a rough intro to the anime, I actually I found it quite pleasant. What I mean by rough intro is this did the same thing that Heaven's Lost Property did, where they had a girl go into the guy's room but hit him because he had morning wood, which I don't really approve of as a joke because there's nothing funny about it. I mean, it's something that happens to guys. It's just the show kind of expressing a blatant disregard and dehumanization of males and male sexuality, pretty much. I mean, it would be almost like an anime where somebody could see a girl's boobs, the outline of their boobs in a shirt, and punch them there, just because, I don't know. What would it take to do that? Because what does it take in order to think that it's funny to have somebody else come into a room and say, oh my god, I took your covers off you and I saw the outline of your private part. I'm going to have to kick you there now. But, and I go over this really thoroughly because it really is a pet peeve of mine, the difference between Heaven's Lost Property and Love, Election, and Chocolate, at least halfway through Love, Election, and Chocolate, is that Heaven's Lost Property does that humorous moment more to introduce the kind of humor that's going to be ever present through there. This idea that men are perverts and this guy is in particular a pervert, and you're going to see a lot of men getting hurt jokes. Whereas, I guess Love, Election, and Chocolate was just really poorly trying to make this girl seem kind of... I think that it was doing it to try and introduce a character, or just doing a really bad job of trying to throw some humor in at that moment. I'm not sure, because it really hasn't been that kind of humor for the rest of the anime. And I kind of actually respect it for not going down some sort of man-hatred route. And instead being an anime about something else. In this case, I mean, I appreciate the fact that this anime is also making me think, although a lot of that thinking is kind of speculation on the part in terms of what would work in terms of what happens to them. And so far, since I'm at the halfway point, it pretty much means that I'm at a certain part of the election process for their school, I guess. And the way that turned out, I thought was actually rather entertaining. And I definitely liked the cameo of characters dressing up as Puella Magic Madoka Magica characters, especially since I'm probably still going to be in a Puella Magic Madoka Magica mood for the next couple of weeks until Puella Magic Madoka Magica Movie 3 finally comes out. And I don't know, I just find the characters amusing. And I think I've commented before why it seems like not entirely understanding why sometimes I see these characters that get thrown at me and they stick and make sense, but other times it feels like I can feel the artificially created character design behind it. I don't know exactly what's going on there. I think Place to Place was one I mentioned where it kind of felt like I could feel an artificialness. Or maybe it was A Channel, or maybe both of those. And that they weren't necessarily bad, but there was some sort of disconnect I had with connecting to the anime when they started. And this anime hasn't given me that problem. I've been kind of curious about what's going on and who's interesting, or what everybody's thinking at each of the moments. If you're looking for something really, really, really funny, I don't think this is it, but I think I've been entertained. Like, things keep happening, so the anime hasn't lost my attention because it maybe doesn't have enough jokes to it. And I think some of the jokes work perfectly fine just as a kind of amusing thing. I don't know, I guess my thoughts are getting jumbled. Today's been a really crazy day, so perhaps I should just stop there. Only other thing I can think to mention, like I said, Maria Holic Alive DVD version should be arriving whenever Right Stuff sends it, or a couple days after Right Stuff sends it. So it should be here next week. And don't take my excitement of Puella Magic Madoka Magica Movie 3 as any sort of knowledge that it's coming out anytime now. I'm just saying in 2 weeks is the street date. I don't think Right Stuff normally ships Aniplex releases particularly early unless they happen to get them, which might mean that Aniplex makes sure Right Stuff only gets them around the right time, maybe. But that there's some part of me that knows that if Right Stuff had the Blu-rays now, then unless Aniplex was specifically doing something with them that would prevent them from shipping it, they would probably be shipping it because they generally aren't so strict about the street dates. And so I'm just excited because it's close enough to be at that point where, even though I'm probably going to be having to wait a couple of weeks, 2 or 3, maybe even more if there's delays, it's so close. And I'm remembering what I saw in theaters and really wanting to revisit it and see what I feel about it, about what happened in it. Oh, but yes, but all that stuff aside, there's also possibility that I managed to get the complete Imagination Cat's Eye release. Now, even though I paid a good amount for it, I kind of justify that to myself for a couple of reasons. First of all, Right Stuff is supposedly going to release a complete collection version of Cat's Eye. It was announced at least in Anime News Network. And I would think that by now we'd have an idea of when it would be coming out. Maybe there's delays, but overall, there's a part of me that thinks that I would feel safer knowing that even if something happened where Right Stuff turned out couldn't release it, I would have access to that. And at the same time, there is something satisfying about knowing that I would also have a complete Imagination release. I'd also be able to take off the RSS feed looking for eBay listings for Cat's Eye that I've been staring at for the past couple of years, which has been landing misses after misses, because there's a Stephen King movie made after a Stephen King novel called Cat's Eye, which stars Drew Barrymore, who was probably... Well, actually, I guess I don't know how young she was, because I never took a close look at the picture. But she was definitely still a little kid at that time, I guess. And I just don't know how that compares to Firestarter and E.T. And there's also other Cat's Eye Japanese releases that are not the Cat's Eye anime. And then there's more recently been Cat's Eye anime releases. And so it's been a couple of years of looking at these constant false positives. And Cat's Eye has been the #1 source of false positives from eBay listings, and I'm hoping that this will finally get that off my back. Although it may not arrive in time by next week, we'll have to see. But yeah, that's a big thing if that happens. And a disappointing thing if it doesn't. So, that's everything I can think of that I would be talking about. I guess I will end the video here, and y'all have a nice week.